So we're gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order. Time now is 10:02 a.m. We are having this meeting in a hybrid format to allow for attendance in person or virtually. Since the meeting is being recorded, we ask that one person speak at a time. And if you are speaking virtually, please mute yourself to allow while others are talking. We ask that one person speak at a time to give consideration for others. The agenda we have is listed on our website, so we will go ahead and proceed through that. The first item on the agenda is the land acknowledgement. So I'll go ahead and read that. The City of Seattle Public Safety Civil Service Commission acknowledges that we are on ancestral lands and waters of the Coast Salish and Duwamish people and their descendants. We honor with gratitude the land and the people, past and present. So let's go ahead and move to commissioner introductions. And I will start. My name is Quinaya Mays, and I'm one of the commissioners.
I'm Richard Green, one of the commissioners.
Right, we have a quorum. Let's go ahead and move forward. The next item on the agenda, adoption of the agenda. So as presiding officer, I move that we revise today's April 17th meeting agenda that's been distributed. I move that we shift number 8 executive session up to number 6. So right in between approval of minutes and updates and discussions.
I will second that.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. The next item on the agenda, public comment. I believe we did receive public comment.
Yes, in writing.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I believe this is,
Was that on page 6, 7, and 8 of our agenda or our packet?
No, the public comment was
emailed to you.
Oh,
emailed
email.
to you.
Gotcha.
Yes, and
Gotcha.
then there was public comment, or comment, number 6A. Regarding number 6A.
Okay.
Okay. So we will move that to discuss that a little bit later on the agenda. Is there any discussion or questions about public comment right now? Or any additional? Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. Next item on the agenda, approval of minutes. So these approval of minutes from the March 11th meeting, I had a chance to review those and I don't have any edits. I move that we adopt the March 11th meeting minutes as distributed.
I'll second that.
Any discussions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great, thank you. I can sign this here in just a couple of minutes. Okay, so the commission will now be going into executive session to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation related to a proposed action or current practice. It's expected that the commission will be in executive session until approximately
10:20 probably.
10:20, about 10:20.
Here's how this, I can work it. Right. It's not a practice test.
The commission will be in executive session for 10 additional minutes.
But it sounds like what it went,
Back on? All right, we are back in session at 10:37 a.m. Let's pick up, let's see, let's move on to the agenda, updates and discussions. So A, Johnson, number 2507-052A, to consider the request by Captain Johnson to revise or modify a decision of the executive director, under Rule 2.13B.
Inasmuch as Captain Johnson has filed this request specifically under 2.13B, I would move that we determine that in our opinion, good cause has not been shown for a hearing, and that therefore we uphold the executive director's March 10th decision dismissing his appeal.
I second that. Any discussions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. Let's move on. Next item on the agenda, which is the fire and police exam unit updates. Police exams.
Who's going to be speaking for police exams?
See that Adelaide had actually, Adelaide, are you still online?
She's muted.
I am still online. Rachel, I can cover entry level and
Okay.
lateral real quick before I
Okay.
have to head out. If you're like, yeah, totally. Hi, everyone. My name is Adelaide. And yeah, happy to talk about entry level police officer. Is everyone able to hear me?
Oh, now we can.
Yes, we can.
Now you can. Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. Well, let me know if it goes quiet. Okay. All right. So yeah, I'll get right into entry level police officer. So for that exam, our applications are continuing to climb. The numbers are actually looking a little bit higher than we saw in 2025. So yeah, we've already surpassed 2,000 applicants as of this morning. So yeah, lots of application activity for entry level. And in terms of folks who have made it onto the register, we've had 422 on the register so far, and we are producing another one just this afternoon. So we'll probably have, another, I would say like 60 to 70 or so that will be added this afternoon. And for lateral, so far we have had 41 qualified lateral applicants, and 6 of them have been placed on the lateral register. And we are doing our next administration of lateral oral boards just tomorrow on Saturday. And we have 5 more scheduled to participate. So hopefully, hopefully they'll all be added to the register if they pass as well. But yeah, and that's all I got for those 2.
Adelaide, do we have a sense of where those laterals are coming from?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. They tend to come from all over. I think historically we've seen, a lot of people from the Southeast. I think, the salary levels that are offered to police officers here in the Pacific Northwest are very, very competitive, compared to what folks tend to earn in like the Southeast region. But we also see folks, often from like New York City, sometimes from the Midwest, and then there's a small handful as well who are, local from other Washington jurisdictions.
Thank you.
Our folks who are interviewing tomorrow, a couple of them are from Wisconsin, one is from Ohio, one is from South Carolina, and the other from Arizona.
So do we know, are these people that are sort of coming to us, or do we know what sort of outreach SPD is doing to like recruit these laterals?
We have, they have a very excellent recruiting campaign going on right now that is basically web-based. They've partnered with an agency who has made it appear very attractive to come to the Seattle Police Department, with the idea that it's a larger department that has a lot of specialty units, excellent pay, excellent benefits. So they're really, trying to attract qualified individuals, people who fit that lateral criteria. Obviously, it's a benefit to not have, applicants have to go through the whole, basic law enforcement training academy. Those that only have the reduced lateral academy, you can get them on the street and working independently a lot faster. So they are doing that outreach.
Good, thank you.
With regard to the privilege, she perfectly covered the entry level and lateral entry candidates. I will state that this morning I was also in NeoGov, and we have 5 additional people who have passed the NTN test and who I will be scheduling for interviews on May 9th. So that's, 10 within 3 weeks, which is really, really good. It seems to me, and I haven't looked at it, but it just holistically seems like people are following through at a higher rate. Last year we had a lot of not a lot, but we had applicants, but they just didn't all follow through. They seem to be following through at a higher rate, taking that NTN test. And then part 2 is for lateral entry is the interview process. So yeah, five more on May 9th. I'll be scheduling them later today. With regard to our promotional exam, we had 1 this year, and that was for police sergeant. We administered the written exam on February 21st. Although we had 73 applicants, we had 51 who showed up for the written exam. And that's typical, the drop-off rate. You have a lot of people apply. There's always fewer who actually show up to the test. So 51 showed up. Of that number, 48 passed the written exam and were scheduled to participate in part 2, which were the assessment exercises. And 3 dropped out of those who had passed. So we had 45 continue on. Those assessments were conducted, assessment exercises, interviews on March 28th. And everybody showed up. Of those 45, we had our assessors in town last week. That's an exam like fire lieutenant. It's our largest group of promotional candidates on the police side. So we record all of their assessment exercises so that we can conduct it in one day. It's kind of an exam security kind of situation. And then we have assessors come to town from a variety of police departments, police professionals who serve at the rank of sergeant or higher, experienced folks who view the recordings and score the performances. So we had that happen last week, and we have 1 more exercise to score, and that is the writing exercise. And that was conducted on March 30th. All of the candidates participated in a writing exercise, producing a document. That is going to be scored, that exercise, by internal subject matter experts from the police department, but anonymously. They don't get to know whose paper they're scoring. So it's just against the scoring criteria. So that will happen on May 7th and 8th. We'll be doing that scoring and get that exam completed with the register in July.
And there were no exam protest reviews filed.
That seems to be an absolute testament to the quality work we're doing, that there were no protests we have to deal with.
There were protests.
Well,
On the written exam, there were, and that's to be expected, and that's very common, mostly because there's a voluminous amount of material, and sometimes there are, when questions are written, there can be, in this situation, these are the facts, and in this situation, these are the facts. People do file successful. There were 4 questions that were removed from the written exam on the basis of people showing good cause as to why they should be removed, because there was contradictory information in the bibliography materials. I'll give you an example. What is the maximum number of hours that an officer can work in a week? You'd think that's a very straightforward question, right? So there are 2 different answers depending on the particular situation. So yeah, we missed that.
But there were no, after the exam development committee sat down and looked at all of the protests and made the protest decisions, there were no, we call them reviews now, we used to call them appeals, but they're actually appeals of the decision. So you are right. The exam development committee built an excellent exam and they, candidates raised fair questions. Some were accepted, some were denied, but those decisions were very sound. And so the result was no.
Realize the fairness of the decision-making process.
Yeah, sounds like
Committee.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
All right, let's move on, fire exam team.
Hi there, Mike Nelson, Public Safety Exams Manager. I will be the fire exams team stand-in. What I can tell you is that we're already working on how entry level for next year. So we've already sent out our request for proposal for 3 hotels, and I think we've probably found one that we're going to go forward. So that should be coming for our executive director for approval. On the lateral front, if you can hear the constant buzzing of the printer in the background right now, that is the prep that all of our, that's why our folks are here, working on preparing for firefighter captain oral boards, which will be next week. We have 38 candidates that will be participating. It will be all week long, all hands on deck kind of in-person operation, and hopefully it'll go off smoothly as it usually does.
Right, next item, let's see, fire staffing.
Hey, sorry, I was speaking with Helen. Were you asking about the HR staffing numbers?
Yes, for
Yeah,
fire
sorry,
department, thank you.
yeah. Sorry, this is Hannah with the Seattle Fire Department. So at this time, our total uniform head count is 1,043. That's out of 1,121 uniform pockets. So 78 uniform vacancies. So far this year, we have 8 retirements, 3 non-recruit resignations, 10 recruit resignations, 73 new hires. That was 73 new hires plus 5 recruits who were returning from a leave of absence in the February class, and 1 rehire. And we are in the middle of screening for the August class, and that's the first class that will be hired off of the new register that was just established in March.
Thank you so much, Anna. I see we also have on our screen Samantha Bannon, who I understand, welcome Samantha, is the new HR director for Seattle Fire Department. Welcome.
Yes. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I'm so sorry I couldn't be there in person today. I'm hoping to next month. My name is Sam. I'm very much looking forward to partnering with all of you. I think today is day 7 or 8 rather. So the end of the first full week here. So appreciate your time.
Thank you. Welcome.
So I had a question. So we've got 78 vacancies, but we're talking about we've got 73 new hires and 5 rehire. So are we approaching our maximum pockets in the fire department?
Well, the most that we can hire into a recruit class is 80. Our training facility just doesn't have the ability to handle a larger class size than that. So I wouldn't say that, I'd say that we would potentially be getting close, but as we go through additional resignations and retirements through the end of the year, I don't think we'll fill up those pockets.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
All right, let's move on, police staffing.
Hello, everyone. Alan McKenzie with the Police Department. As of the end of last month, our all sworn number was 1,120. That's out of 1,277 authorized pockets, but the funded pockets are only 1,184. We had 53 hires year to date. As of a couple days ago, and the separation.
Good job.
And the separations year to date, as of the end of last month, were 19. So we're still hiring a lot more than we're losing.
That's good.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you, Alan.
You're welcome.
All right, let's see. Next item on the agenda, Executive Director, no, case, yep, case report, Executive Director Budget and Department updates. Sorry, Andrea?
Thank you. I don't know, it looks like Mr. McKenzie is still on screen. I don't know why that is, but thank you so much, Chair Mays and Commissioner Green. So on page 22 of your materials, you'll see the, looks like Friday, as of April 10th, Friday, the budget report. I am seeing our carry forward has been added in there, so that is good. From last year, we had some funds that were encumbered and must be carried forward into this year's budget, but we are doing fine for budget for the year. Of course, I say this every month, but because it seems to always be the case, is that we're working with CBO to develop our budget proposal for the next biennium, which is 27-28. And we did, I understand, have a economic forecast come out for the city last year, but I'm sure that the mayor continues to look at potential reductions, and we're in conversations about what can be done for our department with the budget office. More to come later on this year. As for the department, you've heard about a lot of the good work that is going on. We are, I won't be as optimistic as to say that we're nearing the end of exam administration season, but it is approaching. We do have one by road exam that happens in the fall every year. So that will be the conclusion of administration. And then we're gearing up to start development for 2027. And we have some really excellent work going on with our partners in the Seattle Police and Fire Department. No other big developments to report. We do have one employee who'll be retiring 2027. So we're going to be, and she's sitting here with us, and we're going to miss her so much. Rachel Chavez. So she'll be tough to replace, but we're about to launch into that process as well. But I'm happy to take any questions. Oh, case status report. Let's head over there in the packet. Right behind your budget report at page 23. You already addressed the third item on your case status report, the Johnson matter. Thank you. But we do have two other pending matters before this commission. We have the Hill matter 2401004A. That's Hill versus Seattle Police Department. This was a discharge. We've had it for some time. It's been postponed, but we are holding to this hearing date. That is June 8th. Thank you in advance for the work that you commissioners and our attorneys will support, and our staff will support that work starting June. Well, the hearing will start on June 8th. We also have the Ragon v. SPD matter. That's 2501032A, also a disciplinary discharge. Ragon v. Seattle Police Department. And that hearing has now been scheduled for October 27th through 29th. So later on this year. Look forward to that. There are no other disciplinary appeals before this commission. And on the following pages, you'll see requests for probationary extension, year-to-date, as well as requests for reinstatement to the eligible register for both Seattle Police and Fire Departments. Something that we're looking forward to later on this year is elections for both Public Safety Civil Service Commission and the Civil Service Commission. Our policy and operations advisor, Sarah Butler, is ramping up work with the clerk's office to run both of those elections, and employee outreach will begin soon. One other update on a previous item from last month's meeting is the Seattle Fire Department POG has now been updated to reflect accurately how our department selects development committee members. And I will go ahead and pull that POG portion and send it to the both of you.
Thank you.
That concludes my report.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Let's move on to item 7, promotional exam protest reviews. No exam for this review filed, right?
That's right.
Okay, great. Let's move on to the next item. So skipping down to number 9, so Open Public Meetings Act training. Joe?
All right. Need to pull this up here. Sure. Hold on.
Maybe you could pull us off the screen so we can just see Joe's screen.
There we go. Okay,
Oh, thank you.
All right, so you can see that. I'm trying to make it bigger here.
Slideshow.
Yeah, I can't click on it though, unfortunately.
If you pull it down from that menu.
Or just click on slideshow tab at the top.
Yeah, it's not, let's see if we try. Clicking on it, it's not working.
Pull that down. It's a slideshow right there. That red book dictate.
Yeah, that's what I'm clicking on.
Oh. Yeah,
It's
that's
not,
weird.
it's not letting me control this.
That's really weird.
Sorry about this. This will be easy.
Do you want me to try to share?
Yeah, if you could. I don't know why it's not letting me control the. They stopped sharing.
Sarah, do you want to go, you have his materials, if you want to go in the other room, grab them or do it
So
here?
can you bring me onto the screen? Yeah, bring this up.
Oh, that's Samantha.
Oh,
Oh,
Wow.
this is cool.
When that happens.
All right, there it is. Okay, good. Can you get, does it work to go forward, backward? Okay, good. All right, sorry about that. So for today's training, you all have, and I'll have Commissioner Applegate, so you can watch the video, so you all get the training. So today's training's on the Open Public Meetings Act. I'll refer to it as the OPMA. You all have had this training before, so this will be refresher training. But there's some differences in the presentation I'm providing today, but it's very similar content, but it's really good to get this, to have reminders and refreshers about this very important content. After the session today, I'll provide you all with the PDF of the PowerPoint, so you have that as a resource going forward. Also want to make sure we all are aware that since we're an open session and a public meeting, I'm not going to be providing legal advice as part of this discussion. But if you have legal questions going forward about any of this, just contact me and we can talk about any kind of legal questions. And if we needed to, we could have an executive session about that. As in the past, you know, I'm available to you always for any kind of legal questions as is Ann. And then at the end of the presentation, there's also a basics for boards. This is more about parliamentary procedure, which we'll just talk about very briefly. So next slide. Just to start out, always want to thank you for your service and this training and what you do. This training is really important for what you do, but I want to ground it in all the work that you do on behalf of the commission. So thank you very much for your service. Next slide. In terms of the purpose of today's training, kind of you can boil it all down in terms of about the OPMA into one sentence. And I've highlighted the key terms there. So meetings of the City of Seattle's governing bodies, which includes the Civil Service Commission, must be open to the public unless exceptions apply. So that's the default rule. So why are we doing this? We're doing this because you are a member of a governing body, which is a term of art in the Open Public Meetings Act. So the Civil Service Commission, you are a governing body. So the OPMA applies to you. This training is mandatory. So it's mandatory when you come on board, but it's mandatory as refresher every 4 years, but we do it every year just to because it is really important content, make sure you are fully aware of it and any changes that have been made. So this last legislative session, for example, there was one minor change made, but it doesn't affect your work. But we want to make sure you're always up to date on what the law provides for. And in terms of the law, of course, is very important that you comply with the law, but the purpose of the law is also very important. Why are you even doing it? Also, it's important that just in terms of transparency, how you do your work and doing that in an open and transparent way is very important so that the public can see what you're doing and they can trust that what you're doing is based on thoughtful decision making. Next slide, please. So these next couple slides relate to the purpose of the OPMA that's stated in state law and in the OPMA itself. So this comes from the OPMA was initially adopted by an initiative of the people in 1971, and then the purpose was set forth by the legislature in Chapter 4230 of the Revised Code of Washington. So the purposes include, and I think it's again important just to ground this discussion in the key purpose, the key statement of why the law was passed. So I'll refer to you as the commission. So all commissions and all other public agencies exist to aid in the conduct of the people's business. So your actions are to be taken openly and your deliberations are to be conducted openly. And the people of the state do not yield their sovereignty to the agencies which serve them. Next slide. A few other bullets from that statement in state law. The people do not give their public servants the right to decide what is good for the people to know and what is not good for them to know. The people insist on remaining informed and informing the people's public servants of their views so they may retain control over the instruments they have created. That's why, for example, public comment is really important for the commission to hear from the public. For these reasons, even when not required by law, they just said public agencies are encouraged to incorporate and accept public comment during their decision-making process. Next slide. I always like to kind of also start with why this is important in terms of potential consequences. This is not to drop a hammer, but just so you know what these consequences are. And my experience in working with the commissions here has been really good. You all take these state law requirements very seriously and you comply. And so there's not been an issue, but just so you know, if there are consequences if individual commissioners do not comply. So as a just more generally, if you don't comply, then it can lead to a loss of the public's trust in the work that you're doing and the city's commitment to transparency and open government. I mean, that you are a commission that works on behalf of the city, and that for the city, transparency and open government is very important. So you're an arm of the city in that regard. In terms of what's in the OPMA specifically, any action that you take So for example, a policy that you would adopt or a rule change that you would adopt, that if that occurred at a meeting that was not legal under the OPMA would be null and void. So it's a waste of your time to not comply, because if anything you do that doesn't comply in terms of it should be an open meeting, then it's null and void. OPMA violations could potentially serve as a basis to remove a member from the board or the commission here. So just keep that in mind, that because you're expected to follow the law. And that's why we have this training, so that it's so you know what the law requires. There's also individual penalties in the OPMA, which is different than other state laws, including, well, for example, the Public Records Act. There's a individually, you could be subject to a penalty, a fine of $500 for a first violation, $1,000 for any subsequent violations. It's important there, those are knowing violations. That's why we do the training. Because if you have to be shown that you not only violated the act, but you did so you knew that you were violating the act. But we don't even want to go there. We conduct our proceedings openly and we follow the law, so let's continue to do it that way. There's also, in terms of cost too, which could happen, is that attorneys, to the extent that attorneys are involved in bringing a lawsuit, for example, against the city, if that party prevails, then the city has to pay their cost of attorney fees. Next slide, please. So let's start with the fundamentals of what the OPMA provides for. The starting point is, what is a meeting? A meeting means meetings at which the governing body takes action. So in practice, what does that mean? It means it's a gathering of a majority of views. So two of the three is a quorum. So it's a gathering of at least two of you, at which the members have the collective intent of transacting the business of the commission. Collective intent, that basically means if you're acting in an official capacity. So if you get together and you're doing anything related to the work of the Civil Service Commission, then that would be considered a meeting, wherever that would be. And so that's why it's important. It's a little more challenging when you only have three members, because you can't conduct the business of the commission except in an open meeting. And we'll talk about some other ways you can communicate with each other, but those are important foundational principles. So by extension, the key questions are, is there a quorum of the commission at a particular gathering? And if so, are those commissioners, do they have the collective intent to transact business on behalf of the commission? So for example, if you two went to a Mariners game together and just watched the game and didn't talk about commission business, that's fine. It has to do with transacting the business of the commission. Next slide. Further considerations related to this. As I just alluded to, of course, the OPMA can apply even if you are not gathering in this room. If you're on a phone call, if you're sending emails to each other, if you're in a video conference, and we'll talk again about how you can communicate consistent with the act and not have a meeting in that regard. So what the court would look to is, if they look to for the prereqs for a meeting if the prereqs for a meeting are present, so if there's a majority of you and there's collective intent to conduct the business of the commission, the gathering would be considered a meeting under the OPMA, regardless of how it's entitled. So for example, a regular meeting, special meeting, or workshop, anything in that regard, study session. Next slide. So the other key term that I mentioned in terms of what a meeting is relates to the commission taking action. And so what is action is defined under the OPMA? It's the transaction of the official business of the commission. Pretty simply put. It's not just votes, of course, as you know. It's deliberations, it's receipt of public testimony, it's discussions, considerations, reviews, as well as final actions being a vote. So it's not, there's sometimes people get confused, think action just means the final vote. It doesn't. It means all your discussions and deliberations as well related to the commission. And the requirements of the OPMA can apply even if the governing body is not taking final action, not surprisingly. Next slide. So final action is defined under the OPMA. What it as I just alluded to, final action means a collective positive or negative decision or an actual vote by a majority of the governing body, by in your case, by motion. A final action can occur if you had subcommittees, which you don't, because you can't, because there's only 3 of you. So that no
Well,
one,
subcommittees.
so that one doesn't apply. Other commissions, for example, or boards in the city, if they have, or the city council, they have, the council has 9 members, so they have subcommittees, and so that would apply to them. Fundamentally, secret ballots are not allowed, they're prohibited. Final action must occur in open session. And the term final action has significance related to public comment. There was a change made a few years ago in the OPMA related to public comment and final action, so we'll talk about that. Next slide. There's only 2 kinds of meetings on the OPMA. There's either a regular meeting or a special meeting. So regular meetings are the meetings that you adopt the schedule for, which we usually do at the start of the year. You adopt the schedule for the year, and that's your regular meeting schedule. And so the idea, and that's posted on the website. The idea is that the public then knows that schedule. That's your regular meeting schedule. It's actually the notice requirements are less for regular meetings because the public's presumed to be on notice that you're having those, that's your regular meeting schedule. So you would post those online. And in terms of regular meetings, the individual meetings, those are, the agendas are posted at least 24 hours in advance. And Teresa's very familiar with and complies with all the requirements for notice for all these provisions. So I'm not going to get into the details about those requirements, but just to say that that's what happens. Importantly for regular meetings, so there's basically the agenda that's provided, posted prior to the meeting, at least 24 hours in advance. That's really a preliminary agenda because you can revise the agenda. You can revise the agenda as you did today at your meeting. And you, in a regular meeting, you can take action on anything, even something you revised in the agenda. So for example, if something that was added to the agenda, you could vote on it. It's not the greatest practice to add something at a regular meeting and then take a vote on that meeting because the public wouldn't have had notice about it. But under the OPMA, the idea is that regular meetings allow for that. So the public is on notice that you could do that. We'll talk about the difference with a special meeting, you can't do that. So there are no restrictions on legally transacted business, and public comment may be required. And that's an important point we'll talk about going forward. Next slide. So again, the other kind of meetings are special meetings. There's more notice requirements related to special meetings, again, because you call them as needed if you need them. And so the public otherwise won't know about them because you're calling them specially. And so there's more notice requirements so the public knows that you're having the meeting. And that the notice, the agenda gets posted at least 24 hours in advance, similar to a regular meeting. The big difference though, as I alluded to, is that for a special meeting, you could potentially add something to the agenda for a special meeting at the meeting, but then you can't take action on that item on the agenda for a special meeting because again, the public wouldn't have known about it. And that's the higher threshold for notice related to special meetings. Also, a difference with contained or compared to regular meetings is that for special meetings, you can communicate with each other via email to set up a special meeting. Because otherwise, how could you do that? So it's not a violation for all 3 of you to communicate just about having a special meeting saying, and special meetings can be called either by the presiding officer, so the chair, or by a majority of the commission. So then you can communicate just about, not about, so it'd be about whether or not to have a special meeting and what's it about, but nothing else, but that you could communicate related to that. That's a special exception. That wouldn't be a violation of the OPMA to have that kind of communication. Next slide. A few other points there. Same thing, notice must be provided 24 hours in advance. And I just talked about this, that final disposition may not be taken on a matter that's not included on the agenda at least 24 hours in advance. Next slide. A concept that comes into play at times, which you all are familiar with and are good about complying with, is that a concept of rolling or special meeting, or serial meetings. So not special, but serial meetings. And that can occur, for example, if there's email exchange between, in this case, 2 of the 3 of you related to commission business. And because there's only 3 of you and 2 is a quorum, so you you can't do that. There are ways you can communicate, which we'll talk about, but if you're communicating about, say, commission business as a general matter, that would be a violation of the OPMA. So let's, in terms of that last bullet, passive receipt of information is acceptable. So I'll talk about what that means. And that you are all familiar with this, but we'll just go over it real quickly. Next slide, please. So this is a couple slides on just what you can do to communicate and not violate the OPMA. These are recommendations for how to do that. So it's legally acceptable for you all. Here I put subcommittee or working group, but it's acceptable for you to provide on a read-only basis or information-only basis communications to your fellow commissioners prior to a meeting, for example. But I recommend you put on there information only, do not reply, so that the commissioners don't reply to you. So, but say there's an article or something that you saw that you want the commissioners to consider that you want to talk about the next meeting, you could send them an email saying, I want to talk about this at the next meeting, but you put information only, do not reply, just to make sure there's no communication about that prior to the meeting. Next slide. So I just talked about, that's the essence of this. The other slide was more kind of if you had subcommittees, which you don't have. I did make the distinction, we referred to this earlier, about this collective intent. That's terminology that comes from case law, but I wouldn't overread that. It just for your consideration, the way I would think about it simply is that if you have communications with each other, because there's only 3 of you, so just even 2 of you, and you're discussing commission business, then that's likely a violation of the OPMA. So the way that you can communicate is that information only basis. Is that any questions on that, or does that make okay? Next slide. Okay, the other way you could do that is you could provide on an information only basis an email to Andrea or Teresa to say that this is something I want for the commissioners to get for the next meeting. Please distribute it to them. So in that case, you wouldn't be sending it directly to your commissioners. You'd be sending it to Teresa or Andrea, and it'd be distributed that way. And in that case, then what you wouldn't want to do then, if you receive that as a commissioner, say from Teresa, you wouldn't want to then reply to Teresa and include the other commissioners and have, state your opinion about that, because that, again, that would raise that serial meeting issue. Next slide. All right, next topic, in terms of the formats of meetings. So under the OPMA, it's required that you have your meetings in a physical location, which you do. So that's unless there's an emergency situation, but that's generally it's not going to apply to this commission. So in person, you have to have an in-person location for your meetings. Your rules do allow for you to participate remotely, as you know, but there'd still be a physical location that the meeting would be held, even if you're participating remotely. And importantly, there are that second part. So the remote attendance it's in addition to, it doesn't supplement the physical location, again, unless there's an emergency. Next slide. And in terms of that, the public is offered the opportunity to participate either in person, or they can watch remotely, which is the commission complies with those requirements. Next slide. So in terms of public attendance, the commission cannot require attendees to register their name or other information, to complete a questionnaire, or otherwise fulfill condition precedent to their attendance. So this has never been an issue with this commission. But you see times when, for example, over the past, I've seen not our city council, but other city councils have people like sign up for public comment. Our council does that to some extent, but it's just because they have a long line of folks that want to make public comment. So, but the person doesn't have to put their real name. They could just, and you can't require them to provide information so that they can make public comment. So that's your general notion there, because they have a right to make comment if you allow it. And again, there's not, we'll talk about the conditions for public comment, but as the general rule is, you don't have to allow public comment verbally in person. But your practice is to do that, and it's a good practice. And otherwise, you do receive public comment because people from the community can send you emails related to their comments about the commission's work. However, as a presiding officer, the governing body may adopt generally applicable conditions related to running your meetings that include how people conduct themselves, members of the public who are part of your meetings. Because the important thing is these are your meetings to conduct your business. So the public has a right to watch you and see what you're doing. And if you allow it to have public comment, but you also have the authority to, if there's conduct that is from the public that is not allowing you to have a meeting, then you can address that situation so that you can do your work. Next slide. So in terms of public comment, again, this is a change that was made a few years ago to make it more explicit under the OPMA. So it's required. So as a general matter, it's not required, but it is required for regular meetings at which final action is to be taken. So that's a default. So again, this commission has good practice that you accept public comment as a general matter regardless. So it's not an issue, but it's required under the OPMA. If you're going to take a vote on something, that you allow for public comment at that meeting related to that, to the vote. And I have a decision tree on the next slide that kind of provides more detail in that regard as a resource for you to think about going forward. Also, that last slide, the commission is authorized to deal with interruptions, not required to accept public comment that renders orderly conduct of the meeting unfeasible. Fortunately, that hasn't been an issue. Although we have had situations why we changed the technology related to remote meetings because there were some video bombing situations, which are really unfortunate. So and you have every right to control how the remote attendance happens so that you can conduct your work. Next slide. This is just again for future reference about when public comment would be required, but I recommend, which is what you do, is that you do accept public comment for all your meetings in written format, and also if people want to show up to the meeting, then you allow for public comment. Next slide. So another topic, executive sessions. So executive sessions are allowed under the Open Public Meetings Act. So what an executive session is, as you all know, they're not open to the public. They are confidential. With or without attorneys, generally the attorneys we're always going to be there, one of us, in your executive session. You can only have an executive session under the certain specific topics that are set forth in the OPMA. And there's a limited number of them. The one that we use most often relates to, as today, to receive legal advice from legal counsel about potential litigation or legal considerations. Of course, for that, your attorney has to be there because you're getting legal advice. But as this says, it's confidential with or without attorneys. So that's that situation, that's attorney-client privilege information, but there could be other. So for example, the city council, well, even here. So this commission, part of one of the bases for an executive session is to review the performance of a public employee. So that could come up for a commission like this. You wouldn't necessarily need to have the attorneys there, although you'd want us to be there. But that's not necessarily legal advice, but it's still confidential. That's the point. It's still confidential. The executive session under the OPMA must be part of a regular or a special meeting. And it's only allowed for the specific purposes that are set forth in the OPMA. And it's not the same as a closed session. And we'll talk about what that means. Next slide. In terms of a few other points on executive sessions, as we do under the OPMA, it requires that you say what the purpose is, which is to cite what the basis. So like for today was to discuss with legal counsel, legal considerations. That's one of the bases set forth in the OPMA. So you describe what that purpose is, which is what we did. And then you say the time it will end. And then if we need to extend as we did today, then someone comes back and announces that it's going to be extended for some period of time. The point there is a public, they're not involved in the executive session, but you're announcing to the public so they know if they leave, go get a cup of coffee, and that they come back, that you're not restarting the meeting before you said you're going to start the meeting. So that's why if you come back, you don't want to come back before you said that you would come back, because then the public is not going to be able to participate. So it's always best to underestimate the time you need an executive session, and then you can extend if you need to. And then the announced purpose of the exec session is entered into the minutes So not what happened in exec session, just the purpose that was announced for why you went in exec session. Next slide. So as I mentioned, the other type of session, which is different, is a closed session. So for this body, you have certain matters which are regarded as quasi-judicial, which is kind of why so like when you're hearing appeals related to disciplinary matters. And under those, under the OPMA, it says that for quasi-judicial matters, the OPMA does not apply. The requirements of the OPMA do not apply to those kinds of proceedings. So that's different. And I use that terminology because it's important. It's different. An executive session happens as part of meeting under the OPMA, and a closed session, we may have it as part of one of your meetings under the OPMA, but the closed session part of it is not subject to the OPMA, which means, for example, you could communicate with each other about that particular matter outside of a public meeting, and it wouldn't be a violation of the OPMA, only though with respect to those kinds of sessions for quasi-judicial matters. Next slide. So in terms of what the OPMA does not apply to and closed sessions are allowed related to quasi-judicial proceedings, I just described, there are a few others, but those don't apply to your situation. But for example, for the city council, collective bargaining sessions and labor negotiations those can happen in closed session. So that does apply for example, for the city council. Next slide. In terms of minutes, what the OPMA provides for is that the minutes of the regular and special meetings, they must be promptly recorded. This is the terminology it's to use, and open for public inspection. There's some flexibility there. Recorded there doesn't mean that the minutes are recorded video or audio. It means that they, as Teresa does, that their written minutes are prepared and then they're provided. And then they come back to the commission so you can review them, and then you vote on to approve them or to revise them if you need to. In terms of executive sessions, they're not required, except as I mentioned before, that in the minutes, the purpose of the executive session. So basically what happens is the agenda says there's an executive session, and the minutes say executive session was held as part of and it says the purpose of the executive session. And the state law is pretty flexible about the format of minutes and how they're prepared, and I recommend, as Teresa does, we call them action minutes. So the goal of the minutes isn't to describe everything that was said at a meeting. It's to capture what happened and what action was taken. You'll see some bodies do have some pretty detailed minutes, and I don't recommend that because if you're trying to summarize what somebody said, inevitably what happens is, so that's actually not what I said, or I said it differently than that. So that they already record the meetings through the video, so people can watch exactly what they said. It's not meant to be a transcription. The minutes are not meant to be a transcription of your meetings. Next slide. So in terms of closing up here, 5 key takeaways from today's training. A primary purpose of the OPMA is to provide transparency to the public related to the commission's business, and by extension, the city's business. In the interest of, I always make this point, because in the interest of transparency, you may find that the work of the commission is not as efficient as you would like. So it's not very efficient that you can't communicate with each other, walk down the hall, you two, after you leave the meeting, start talking about commission. That would be nice if you could, but you can't, because that'd be a violation of the OPMA. So the idea of the OPMA, again, is about transparency and openness for the public. And sometimes that's inefficient in terms of the work that you do, but that's baked in, and that's important in terms of transparency. This training is not only important to guide related to your role, but it's also a legal requirement. So congratulations, you met that legal requirement. It's important that you know the difference between a regular and special meeting, which we talked about. Also important that you're aware of what constitutes a rolling or serial meeting. And in your case, it's even more important to know that because there's only 3 of you. So if 2 of you communicate, as we talked about, that can be a violation. And it's also be important to be aware of the various kinds of technology, because it doesn't matter the way that you're communicating, what type of technology you're using. It's still, so for example, if 2 of you had Facebook pages and you were communicating via Facebook about commission business, then that could be a violation of the OPMA. So it doesn't matter if it's email or in person or by phone or however you do it, it could be a violation. So just don't go there. And you all have been very good about that, so I appreciate that. All right, with that, any questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
Very nice.
And I really do appreciate that your attention to today's presentation, but also that you always seem good about reaching out. If you have any questions, I always, as you know, and then sure advises as well, reach out to us before you do something. If you have any questions, instead of after the fact, and which you're all great about. So we're here for you, and feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, amazing training. So let's go forward. Next item on the agenda, old new business. The financial interest statements for calendar year 2025. Those were done.
PSCSC is 100% compliance.
Done, complete. Awesome. All right, any other items for older new business? Well, looks like we're at the end of the meeting.
So just, sorry, real quick,
Yeah.
there was, we also had mentioned that, the basics for boards, you all recall seeing that before? So it's just, I'll keep this really brief.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yes. Mhm.
So a few years ago, just in terms of, this doesn't relate to the OPMA, but it relates to just parliamentary procedure. And just to emphasize, you're all really good at this. But just because you're on a commission, just like any kind of governing body, especially running a meeting and being the chair of a meeting, it's not rocket science, but it is, there are some tips, or there are some techniques, there are some golden rules to use so that you can run an efficient meeting, and Kunal, you do a great job of that. The key there is that you operate through motions, so that the motions get offered to do something. So I move to, adopt the agenda, for example. And then, so you have a motion and then you have a second. And the reason the second is important is because if you don't get a second, then you don't move it forward. And it's important that not just the chair knows these rules, but also that all commissioners know the rules, because it's your commission. And the chair, these duties of the chair on the right side here. So it's important to know the duties of the chair, but also you all take ownership for how the commission operates. So the duties are to call the meeting to order, announce items on the agenda, recognize members to speak. So again, all of you do all this really well, which is great. Some don't. Some other boards and commissions don't. So it's always, let you know that you're doing a good job, but also to emphasize what roles there are. Stating each motion, putting it to a vote, and announcing the results of the voting. That's always important. It helps trace it too in terms of the minutes. Enforcing order when you need to, responding to inquiries. So, if a member had a question, and it's key, the chair is serving the commission as a whole. So the question should be directed from the members to the chair and then to respond that way. And also then, as we get up to, we're closing the meeting. So kind of the key there is that the chair is serving the group, and that you're acting by motions. And so just in terms of those motions, I move to, you get a second, any discussion? Potentially someone could move to amend. If they move to amend, then you address the amendment first. And then once that, if it passes, then you have the initial motion that's been as amended, and then you have further discussion, and then you have a vote on what was moved. And, if you need to, Chair, you can restate the motion, but as long as it's clear, if the motion was very clear as brought as it was today, for example, you don't need to restate it, but you could check with your members to see, does everyone understand the motion, and then have that vote, and have that deliberation and then the vote. And then it's good to have that on the record, as again, helps Teresa when she's doing the minutes, that it's clear what the vote is. But also, it's, as you did today, you can ask if there's any abstentions, but if there's only, for example, there's only 2 of you today, or if say you have 3 of you and everyone voted, then you don't need to ask for the extension. That'd only be necessary if no one voted, basically. And same with if you say all those in favor, And if everyone votes yes or aye, then you don't need to ask for nay because everyone voted aye already.
This is a nice document. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we spent some time putting that together just because we wanted to kind of, as you're probably aware, there's much more detailed parliamentary procedure training available, which the city has the boards and commissions department has provided that, which you can do. It's called the Jurassic Parliament through Ann McFarland, which is really, really detailed and really beneficial. But it's also, there's only certain things that are really most significant to what you do on your daily work. And that's what we try to boil that down into one page document. So that's what this is about. Any other questions on that? Thank you for that.
Thank you very much. All right, so following up back on the agenda, so next meeting date is May 20th, 2026 at 10 a.m. Any new business, final business items?
No.
All right, well, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we stand adjourned at 11:38 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. And I'll just email you and we'll set up a time sometime next week.